everybody? Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Let's try that again. Hello, Ignite. Well, in the next 45 minutes, I've got one job to do for you. I need to show you that there's a world beyond VDI with cloud development environments and Microsoft DevBox. I'm Anthony Cangelosi. I'm the Group Product Manager for DevBox and Developer Division. Now, many of you are already starting to look at VDI, like many other organizations, for the potential that they bring, and they have a lot of great benefits. They provide a reliable, a secure environment that's a great alternative to your physical environments. And today, while so many of us are working in hybrid environments, the scalability, the anywhere access means that we can reach huge teams across the world with that service. And through all of the centralized management that you get through VDI in managing those desktops, you can really maximize all of your security and also your cost savings at the same time. So we're done, right? Why are you here? Well, that's why. 120 minutes. That's how long the average Microsoft developer spends actually writing code. And that's pretty consistent, and it's in line with most of the studies that you'll see online, between 10 to 40% of a developer's day. So where does all the time go? What was that? Yes. Well, so if you ask Stack Overflow and today, you'll find that there's a couple things your developers are telling you. About 2/3 of your developers are spending 30 minutes or more every day searching for answers to problems they're facing already. Half of your teams are spending 30 minutes or more answering questions for others on the team. And about 30% say that knowledge silos, the lack of information that they need, is impacting their own productivity 10 or more times every week. Now, the challenges aren't just limited to developers. Dev teams are dealing with constantly changing environments. The platforms that they build on, the SDKs that they reference, the problems that they're solving. They rely today literally on hundreds of tools and services, from writing the code to testing it to getting it out into production. So much so that we need developer tools to actually help eliminate all of the toil of these constantly changing environments. And to keep up, we as admins can no longer manage all of this complexity through just service tickets and human processes. We need a platform that gives us the tools and the ability to delegate the management of those tools down to the teams that understand their project needs best, while still giving us the ability to set those guardrails to make sure that they're following your patterns and practices consistently. And this is really where cloud development environments become such a powerful tool that go well beyond what you'll get out of any VDI system. They give you pre-configured environments that are already set up, eliminating all of the mundane steps for your developers to set up their environment. Not to mention eliminating that knowledge silo of how do I even get a working development environment running. They're all integrated deeply into your developer tools. So when your developer gets into their environment, they get straight to their code and back into their flow faster, saving that valuable, precious 2 hours to be more productive. The customizability gives your dev teams the ability to manage and handle all of the diverse requirements that every unique project requires. Now, developers love isolation because it allows them to separate their projects and their tasks and their experiments, so they never have to worry about one of those changes poisoning their primary developer workstation. And then with project-level security, you're able to limit access to lots of sensitive resources to just the developers and the devices that need access to them. This is how we came to create Microsoft DevBox. These are secure, ready-to-code cloud development environments. They provide a platform for teams to define the environment for their developers to keep up with all of that constantly changing code and requirements. It also has built-in core guardrails that enterprises can use to ensure that those developer workstations are secure and compliant. And it provides a really powerful and a personal experience for developers that they can self-serve and access from anywhere. Let's take a look at the developer experience for Microsoft DevBox. OK, let's dig a little deeper. Every application and every team in your org has their own requirements and configurations. Whether you're building .NET apps, or you have front-end developers, if you have Java developers, or embedded system developers with their own proprietary tools. Which version of Python does this application support? You're probably seeing all of this come through in requests from your developers to get additional tools built into their development environments. And you're either bloating up the environments that you're deploying with lots of tools that not everybody needs, or you're delegating it down to the teams to manage and maintain with their own out-of-date manual setup instructions. And so DevBox is providing a new set of tools that let teams maintain their own development environments. They maintain this through configuration as code that they can either store inside or with the source code for their application, or they can be stored centrally in a platform engineering repository. It also brings now a brand new imaging service that's built in with DevBox that lets you snapshot those configurations so they can be rapidly deployed onto any DevBox. And then finally, they have the tools for admins to make sure that only the configurations you allow are applied onto DevBoxes, and it keeps your images up to date and secure. Now, I'd like to invite Drew from our team to come on up and show you some of these capabilities.
Developers, developers, developers. All right, that music has me acting like our good old friend. Hey everyone, my name is Dhruv. I'm a product manager on DevBox, and I'd like to show you how DevBox can really smoothen and simplify your developer onboarding. And instead of going to some slides, let me take you straight to a demo. Now, for this demo, I'd like you to imagine that I'm an engineering manager. Well, I'm actually a PM, but imagine for a sec that I'm an engineering manager. I work on a web app called eShop, and my engineering team is a full stack team. So we've got folks working on front-end tasks, back-end tasks, the whole spectrum, right? And it used to take 1 or 2 days to just get started on the latest version of the repository. You had to read a wiki page, ask a friend, bribe them with lunch, the whole thing. But not any longer, because I've set up DevBox for my developers so that all they have to do is create a new DevBox whenever they need to work on that project, eShop. All they have to do is go to the developer portal, that is devportal.microsoft.com, click Create New DevBox, give it a name, and they'll see that they have access to many projects, including Contoso eShop, which is the web application that my team's responsible for. And when they do select it, they see 2 different kind of configurations or 2 flavors of DevBoxes already available for them to create. There's one suited for back-end development and another one more tailored towards front-end development. And depending on the task that they have at hand, they just pick a DevBox and create one, and they're ready to go. Now, I kind of cheated a little bit, and I created 2 DevBoxes 5 minutes before this presentation to kind of show you what my developers would be getting if they were to create those boxes, right? So let's imagine that I'm a front-end developer, and I created a DevBox for front-end development. This is what my DevBox would look like. It already has the code base ready to go in Visual Studio Code. It comes with Node.js installed and ready to go. And it also comes with the repository itself conveniently cloned on a dev drive for optimal performance. So there's my eShop code base. They didn't have to set any of this up. It just works, and they get this out of the box. Now, if I was a developer working on a backend task today, well, I would have gotten a slightly different box that was more tailored towards backend development. So instead of Visual Studio Code, I'd get eShop loaded up into Visual Studio. The repository is, again, conveniently cloned and built. And it comes with Docker Desktop because it's a container application. So none of this required any setup, any wiki pages. They just create a new DevBox, and they get a machine that they could dive right into and start development. Now, how did I set all this up? Trust me, it's not magic. But let me zoom out for a bit and show you a little bit of the architecture of what goes on behind the scenes here. All right. My organization, Contoso, has a dev center defined in Azure. And there's many projects. eShop, my project, is just one of them. And what my IT team did is they made me an administrator for the eShop project, which gives me, as an engineering manager, the flexibility to define customizations for my team's dev boxes in a way that is specific to my team. I don't have to have IT involved. I could just self-serve and create these customizations for myself. And there's a lot of teams in Contoso, so Orchard, Podcast, they could feel free to create their own customizations for DevBox without interfering on mine. And what's great is all of these customizations, which I'll show you in a bit, all of them derive from a common base that IT has written for me. So that has a lot of things like what is the enterprise golden image I should be using, what are common dev tools that every developer at Contoso uses. So all those are kind of defined in the base Contoso image, so that all that I need to do is define the special sauce that my team needs instead of having to reinvent the wheel and install a whole bunch of packages that everyone uses. Now let me actually show you what those customization files in this diagram are, because they're pretty simple but very flexible. All right. So here's my repository on GitHub for the eShop project, again, for which I'm the engineering manager. And all I had to do to customize dev boxes is to create two simple YAML files that define exactly what I want in my dev boxes. So remember, you saw a flavor of DevBox that is more for front-end development and another one that I set up more towards back-end development. Let's take a look at the front-end one first. DevBox customizations could be as simple as you would like them to be. We have inbuilt support for Winget and PowerShell. So in my customization file here, I'm using, I'm cloning down my repository. I'm using Winget to install Visual Studio Code, AZD, and I'm just inlining a bunch of PowerShell to set up the right Visual Studio Code extensions for my front-end developers. Now, this is very flexible, so if you have existing PowerShell scripts or you're using a third-party orchestrator like Ansible, you could plug them right in and they'll just work. So it's a very extensible framework. So let me show you an example of that. If we go to the customization that I've written for my backend developers, it's a little different. Instead of using PowerShell directly, it offloads most of the heavy lifting to a PowerShell desired state configuration file. So this just shows how extensible our model is. And if you look at the actual desired state configuration that I have for my backend developers, that's where most of the heavy lifting is done, like turning on developer mode, installing Docker that you saw, and installing Visual Studio, and more. Now, this is pretty cool, but you might be wondering, do your developers have to know any of this? Like, did my developers have to specify this file when they're creating their dev box? No, this is all invisible and transparent to them. They don't have to worry about this file. They don't even have to know it exists unless you want them to make changes to it. All I had to do as the engineering manager to set this up for my developers is to go to the eShop project that I have on Azure and add this repository as a catalog. So catalog support GitHub and Azure DevOps repositories, and it essentially gives us a way to figure out where to scan these customizations from. So I could add that GitHub repository as a catalog, and what that does is it makes available those customizations, as you can see front-end and back-end engineering here, when I'm creating DevBox pools for my developers. So as you saw in this screen, all my developers see is a list of pools that they could create dev boxes in, and they don't have to worry about any of the customization files. It just works. They create a dev box, it's ready to code for them, no wiki pages, no understanding files. Now, all that's pretty cool, but there's actually one more thing I'd like to share with you. You might be wondering, well, Dhruv, these customization files kind of feel like images. There's a base, and I'm running a bunch of things. And you're actually right. In fact, if you go to this section called image definitions, which we're recently launching, you could pick one of your customizations, and at the click of a single button, build, or through a call to our API, we will optimize your customizations into an actual custom image. So you get all the benefits of having a custom image without having to pay much of the cost, like setting up custom infrastructure, maintaining custom pipelines. You don't have to do any of that. We just convert your customization files into real custom images behind the scenes and use them with DevBox. So you get a lot of those benefits without a whole lot of setup. Now, this is how we were able to scale DevBox at Microsoft. So at Microsoft, we have over 35,000 developers actively using DevBox today. And they are across 200 different teams with 400 different custom customizations written for each team. So every developer in those 200 projects gets a ready-to-code environment using this framework. And this is how we were able to scale to over 35,000 developers at Microsoft who are actively using DevBox. And you might be wondering, well, is this all vaporware? When can I use it? Well, coming to some announcements, project catalogs, the ability to attach your repository to source your customizations from, is generally available. And we're excited to announce the public preview of team-level customizations, which is the feature that you just saw that allows you to create a simple YAML customization file with inbuilt support for PowerShell and Winget that you could use to define your team's dev boxes and make them ready to code. And we're also excited to announce the public preview of inbuilt imaging. So you could take those customization files and get all the benefits of a custom image without those costs. And you get it with a single click or a call to our API. And finally, you saw me use a few things in my customizations, like DevDrive, PowerShell, and Winget. And we have a few cool announcements there as well. With DevDrive, we now have up to 90% faster copies through block cloning. PowerShell is excited to announce Copilot support right in the Windows terminal. So you get a lot of assistance writing PowerShell, especially when you're creating DevBox customizations. And we have new capabilities with desired state configuration in PowerShell, like imports and the ability to do multiple assertions, which is also generally available in December. And finally, if you're a customer using Winget, especially a private Winget feed, you can now enforce Entra ID authentication to really secure your whole package supply chain. That's about it. Back to you, Anthony.
Thanks a lot, Drew.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. That's really awesome stuff. And you just saw how dev teams and platform engineers together can create custom development environments for just about any kind of scenario. But if you're starting to think to yourself at this point in the conversation that that's a little too much flexibility for our organization, that's why DevBox also offers the guardrails to manage how much flexibility you provide to all of those teams. Project management lets you define exactly which configurations, which SKUs, even which networks are available to the developers authorized to your projects. DevBox is built on top of Windows 365. That means it's integrated with Intune, with Endpoint Manager, and you can take advantage of all of the world-class device management services inside of Microsoft. And because DevBox is a self-service tool, you also have the controls to be able to manage costs, but in a way that doesn't interrupt your developers' productivity. And so now I'd like to ask Denizen if he'd come join us and show us a little bit about those innovative controls.
Thank you, Anthony. Hey, everyone. I'm Denizen. I'm a senior product manager here on the DevBox team, and I'm really excited to take this moment to explain when we say guardrails, what we really mean and how it fits into that self-serve with guardrails. So let's jump straight into project management. DevBox truly does specialize in this project-based development environment, allowing you to define these project-specific policies, networking configuration, role assignments, and so much more, creating these clear boundaries that ensures each project remains secure, organized, and tailored to your team's unique needs. So let's take this moment to actually explore how we can leverage these guardrails within the projects today. Cool, so let's start with taking a look at all the different projects that are associated to my Contoso Dev Center. So as you might imagine, each project might not need the same exact resources. You might want to assign specific SKUs, specific images, or network connections to each project. So we just saw in Drew's demo how you can now create images based off these YAML files, right? But doesn't it sound a little concerning if any team can then go and create any kind of DevBox? Well, this is exactly why we're super excited to announce project policies in public preview today. So with project policies, I'm now able to determine which projects are going to have access to which network connections, images, and SKUs. So we can go ahead and explore some of the project policies that I've already created. And so let's start with this default policy. The default policy is automatically applied to all projects, and here I've selected just a few images to associate to all of my projects, and the 8 vCPU SKU that all my projects should have. Right? I also have higher core policies here, for example, the 16, for those projects that just might need a little bit more oomph to get the job done within their projects. Right? But as we said, DevBox specializes in project-based development. So let's really understand how you can use this to take your dev experiences to the next level. And in our day and age, really, there's nothing more important than security. Security always comes first. We need to ensure that the apps that we work on are always secured and reliable. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to do this within your projects, but I want to show you guys one way on how you can do this using these private project-based networks alongside DevBox and project policies. So for the sakes of the demo that we're about to do, let's assume that the eShop web application is in development so that we only want our internal teams to have access to the app. Obviously, we might have user auth to have that first layer of security, but we want to add another layer of security into our web app to block any sort of external access using a private network. What I want to create is a private virtual network assigned to my eShop project, ultimately meaning that every DevBox that's going to be deployed from this project will be within a specific internal IP range. I can then allow traffic to my web app only from this specific internal IP range, meaning that all of those dev boxes can simply access my web app, while other devices, like my own personal laptop that I have here, should fail. So let's go ahead and add this layer into the web app. So let's start with the project policies again. Right? So I have this eShop network policy that I have here, and you'll notice that I've already created and assigned these 2 private networks to the eShop project. So this means that those dev boxes that spun up from the eShop project will be within that specific IP range that I've configured. Now we can go back into my web application container app, and let's actually go into this ingress page. So at the bottom, you'll see that I've only allowed traffic from the IPs that I have listed at the bottom, which are the IP ranges that I have associated to that eShop project. So now we can actually check if this is going to work. Again, what I'm going to expect is if I try to access this public URL for my web app through my personal machine, we should fail, but in the dev box should be successful. So first, let's start with my personal laptop here, right? I have the URL of the web app. I'll try to go into it. And fantastic, failed, right? This is rare time where we want to fail. But now I can go into a dev box, right, from the eShop project and search the same URL. And fantastic, right? We have the web app, and I can immediately get going because I have this dev box. So quite awesome, right? I was able to create a private virtual network, assign it to my eShop project through the project policies that we discussed, restrict traffic to my web app only through the IP range that we've assigned for our private network. And now we can automatically enable access to the web app through dev boxes deployed in the eShop project. So this means my developers can now be more productive because they get this immediate access to the web app, but we're also in a very secure environment through the network. So we just saw how we can utilize Dev Center project policies to simply enable access to specific resources in specific projects. You can use project policies to enhance project security, like the demo that we just saw, or you can control machine configurations while providing teams imaging flexibility and so many more use cases. We see this version of project policies as pillar to the future of Microsoft DevBox, and we're only at the beginning. We look forward to continuing to iterate on this and empowering admins through project policies for more use cases in the future. With Microsoft DevBox, creating isolated, secure networks for your projects gets pretty straightforward. by using Azure Virtual Networks, you can restrict each project's access to only the resources that it needs. This not only strengthens that security that we're looking for, but it also ensures that the projects align with existing networking policies. Whether that's routing traffic through your centralized configurations or integrating with your firewalls, DevBox fits seamlessly into your existing networking topologies. And access control is critical for secure operations. And this is why DevBox integrates deeply with Azure RBAC. You can assign roles using built-in templates or create custom roles tailored to your organization's exact needs. This ensures that team members only have access to what they require, reducing that potential risk of accidental or unauthorized changes. Now, when it comes to device management, a DevBox is truly no different than any physical hardware that you might provide your developers. Each DevBox will be Intune enrolled, providing you all the great device management capabilities and guardrails through Intune. Let's take a look at how we can use Intune to control some of the device settings for our developers. Now, as developers, we're very often working on sensitive data and content. Whether that's the data that we're coding on or working on day to day, or the actual contents of data of our clients, it's the responsibility of each enterprise to keep this data safe. For this reason, you might be a little concerned about having your developers access a workplace DevBox through, say, their personal machine in order to prevent that transfer of data between their work DevBox and their personal machine. So I want to kind of dive deeper into this concept and actually explore how we can limit this sort of data transfer using DevBox in combination with Intune. So this time, let's go ahead and start in the Intune admin portal. So what we're going to do is we're going to configure a couple of Windows settings on the DevBoxes that my developers will be using. And for sakes of this demo, let's create configurations that are going to prevent my developers on my DevBoxes from copying and pasting content from the DevBox into their local machine, right? And we also want to prevent any sort of screen capturing of content of that DevBox, so that, again, prevent any sort of transfer of data. So first, I'll go into Devices, and we'll go into the Windows configurations. And I'm just going to create a new policy for these devices. So we'll select Windows 10 and later, and we'll pick an administrative template to get this going. And first things, we obviously have to name our policy. I'm going to name it Data Transfer Policy. And I'll give it a description, right? Again, we're restricting the clipboard from the DevBox, which is our server in this case, to our local machine, our client. And we're also going to restrict the screen capture of DevBoxes from the local machine or the client. So first, I'm going to search for screen capture in the settings. And you'll see this option, Enable Screen Capture Protection. So first thing, I'll just enable this. And you'll see two options here. I have block screen capture on client and potentially server as well. But I still want my developers to take screen captures within their DevBox, just not of that DevBox. So I'll stick to only client. Now we're going to go for the clipboard. So I'll type in restrict clipboard. And I have two options here. So again, I only want to block the server to the client, or going from the DevBox to my local machine, and I don't necessarily want to go the other way for now. So I'll select server to client, and we'll enable that. And you'll see there's a lot more options here in terms of what I enable between the transfer using the clipboard. But again, for sakes of the demo, let's just block the entire clipboard. We'll hit next. Scopes are optional, but I will go into assignments. And here I can easily just assign it to every device. Now, this is where DevBox becomes pretty powerful. I have the option of applying my existing Intune policies to my DevBoxes, just like it's any other hardware, as we said, just physical hardware. Or I can create dynamic groups and apply these sorts of policies only to DevBoxes, which kind of gives me that flexibility as an admin to determine which policies applies to what devices. And we'll go ahead and finish this and create this. And then we can test it now. Now, these configs were a part of my Contoso config, so I can immediately go ahead and test this out. So we have this very basic test. welcome to Ignite. First things first, let's make sure I can actually copy and paste inside of my dev box. So we'll copy that, and we'll try to paste. Phenomenal. Copy, paste is good to go. Now, let's try to take this welcome to Ignite text again and go into my local machine and try to paste here. So again, I would expect welcome to Ignite, but I actually have something way older, actually the description, that was previously on my clipboard on my local machine, right? So we've successfully prevented the transfer of clipboard from that direction. Now, the other thing that we did, the screen capture, let's see if that's going to work. So I'll pull up my dev box again, and we'll hit Windows-Shift-S to take a screenshot. But boom, the dev box goes fully black, and I can't take a screenshot of this. It would just look fully black. So again, we've successfully managed to block the content of screenshots. So we just saw how DevBox can benefit from Intune to manage your devices, but honestly, DevBox integrates with a lot of the Microsoft family beyond Intune. Native integrations with external Microsoft services like Intune, but also Entra, Defender, and Azure Monitor Agent can heavily simplify today's challenges of device management with a cloud development environment. And DevBox continues to loop in the benefits of the entire Microsoft family, even within the DevBox. Dhruv showed us integrations with DSC, Winget, and DevDrive, but you might also ask, how can I use additional Microsoft tools in the DevBox, such as the Windows subsystem for Linux? Well, the WSL team continues to announce new features that you'll notice help complete this circle and connection between all of these different Microsoft tool sets. WSL is introducing Intune device compliance integration, as well as Entra ID integration to allow WSL to grab the Entra ID auth directly from Windows. And our final bucket of guardrails we've mentioned for DevBox is cost controls. Obviously, cost is always a consideration when it comes to any kind of compute service. But cost has to be balanced with performance and productivity. Through capabilities like hibernation, direct hibernate on DevBox disconnect, scheduled stops, and more, DevBox ensures your developers are maximizing productivity while optimizing for cost. Now, on top of these guardrails that we've been talking about, DevBox is designed to be this mission-critical service for your developers, providing the reliability needed to support global engineering teams. Microsoft DevBox is now available in 21 Azure regions and counting, bringing these powerful capabilities to you worldwide. Built on Windows 365 and the Azure platform, it leverages the full strength of the Microsoft ecosystem, ensuring you're equipped with the best-in-class tools, seamless integrations, and unmatched reliability. We're now happy to integrate additional services like disaster recovery, Azure Monitor Agent, and the Azure Service Health notifications for even better reliability when ensuring your developers get this like local experience when using the DevBox itself. So we'll give it back to Anthony.
Thank you, Denizen. That like local experience that Denizen mentioned is something that the team works tremendously hard on under the covers that you don't see, is fundamental and kind of a core to delivering a great developer experience. DevBox at its core is a developer service, and so it's integrated, as Denizen mentioned, with many tools like WSL, Winget, but also with Visual Studio and other tools deeply there so that you get right into your code. You've seen a bit about that developer experience already, so I thought, why not invite a developer from Microsoft to talk a little about what that experience is like using DevBox. Nirja, do you want to join us?
Hey, everyone. I'm Nirja Singh Reddy. I'm Group Engineering Manager for Microsoft DevBox.
Welcome, Nirja, to Ignite. Tell us a little bit about how is it that your team uses DevBox?
Sure, Anthony. Before I get into how we use DevBox at Microsoft, let me talk about the challenges we had before we started using DevBox. I still remember the day when I was talking to one of the senior developers working on one of the products, and he was so frustrated because he had spent days just setting up his machine to work on a different version of the product. And today, with DevBox, the same developer can create 2 different DevBoxes, one for the latest version of the product that he's working on, and another for a previous version of the product that he has to work on, and spend most of his time on really coding and fixing issues for our customers, which is what he enjoys.
Honestly, though, Nirja, how complicated is it to clone a repository, really?
Sure, he's a product manager, right? And all product managers think that developers' life is super easy. Let me educate you on that. So at Microsoft, most of our products are huge, right? The code bases are huge. And some of those products are distributed across multiple Git repos. So as a developer, if I want to work on, say, a particular ticket or a task or a feature, I really need to know which repositories I should be cloning, which tools I should be installing, like, for example, ACCLI or PowerShell, SQL Server, IIS, etc. What extensions for Visual Studio and VS Code I should be installing, what environment variables I should be setting, and so on and so on. Right? We literally have pages of documentation or wiki to just get started.
So you've reminded me why I'm not a developer and why I'm a product manager, and happy at that. But so it sounds awesome, but were all of the developers bought in from the beginning?
That's a great question.
We're among friends here, so be honest.
Yes, absolutely. So as you know, Anthony, we use our own products before we release to customers at Microsoft. It's called as dogfooding. So when we started dogfooding DevBox at Microsoft, there was a lot of skepticism from our developers, mainly around latency, performance, and that they have to create another machine, set it up, and personalize it. A lot of developers wanted to personalize their machines. So it took a lot of time for us to work through that.
And so how'd you address those issues?
Sure. Thanks to a lot of initial dogfooding developers, we got a lot of feedback from them, and we worked through all this feedback. For example, for latency and connectivity, we worked with various teams across Microsoft to improve our connectivity experience to DevBox. We wanted to make it really great. For example, from the protocol handler that's used to connect, to app, like Windows app that's used to connect, to even enabling single sign-on authentication so that the speed at which you can connect is really within seconds, to even the apps that are run on DevBox, like Visual Studio and Teams, they are optimized for DevBox. We rolled it out to various regions because our developers are spread across the world, and we wanted to make sure that their experience is really, really good. We've worked on a bunch of features like customization and imaging after we heard a lot of feedback from our customers to make our end-to-end experience really great. And now we have more than 30,000 developers actively using DevBox at Microsoft.
So this is Ignite. This is an admin event. It is an event for all of these folks who are running some of the biggest infrastructure systems in the world. How is it that Microsoft deploys and runs DevBox? Do you have like a workstation under your desk that manages it all?
I wish I had. So we have a central platform engineering team called as One Engineering Systems team at Microsoft, whose job is to roll out products at Microsoft. So what they did was they worked with the IT team and the security team to create the private network, set up firewall settings, etc., and get the sign-off from security perspective, because security is super important at Microsoft. Once they did that, then they created dev centers for each of the orgs within Microsoft. Within the dev centers, they created projects for each team and assigned a project admin from that team. So that way, the project admin from the team could self-serve themselves without really platform engineering team coming into play. They could create the images for their specific team because they understand what their team needs and keep it updated. And if there were projects where they had to restrict the users, they would only give access to the users that need access to that particular project.
So we tell our developers that they can log into their DevBox and work right from within their DevBox. Are there any surprises that you've found using DevBox now that it's been about a year or more that your team's been using it?
Sure. So most of the teams at Microsoft use in a few specific ways. For example, for our new hire onboarding, for really creating dev boxes for different tasks or scenarios, or giving it to our vendors for testing. It's super easy to just provide dev boxes to our vendors, or even just reviewing the PRs and validating the PRs. And it's super easy to actually access it from anywhere. I've seen developers access DevBox on their phone while they are traveling. But this one team was interesting the way they were using DevBox. They used it for Linux app development. They had Visual Studio Code on their local machine, and they would connect to Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL, on DevBox and do their Linux app development, leveraging the isolation and high compute for DevBox. This was a super interesting scenario.
So they don't even have to log into their DevBox, and they can code against a Linux backend.
Yes.
And they set that all up themselves. That
Yes.
sounds like an awesome feature. We should add that to our backlog.
Absolutely. Making Linux experience a first-class experience would just be cool. Definitely. Let's add it to our backlog.
Sounds good. Thank you, Nirja.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
So Nirja touched on just a few of the scenarios that DevBox unlocks for modern development teams. Beyond just rapid onboarding and remote work and hybrid development, DevBox is a fantastic tool for supporting short-term work contracts. If you're trying to accelerate work that you're delivering and supplement with some external development teams, it's a great tool to be able to get them onboarded rapidly onto the same environments and then offboard them just as quickly to make sure that your content and your collateral is all secure. It's a great tool for acquisitions and mergers where you're trying to bring disparate teams together to collaborate that have different infrastructure. We use it for hackathons. We've seen it for secure development, and even also legacy application, mission-critical legacy apps that you're trying to maintain that have very specific app requirements. You can create a DevBox that lets you spin one of those up right away and get straight to addressing issues in that app. Now, we all here and all the folks back home in Redmond are on a journey to give your devs, your teams, your platform engineers a new developer experience with ready-to-code DevBoxes. We really want to let every developer get the benefits of ephemeral development environments. And so we are super excited about everything we've had to share here today and announce, and how that's going to bring a tremendous amount of new power to how your teams use DevBox today. Now, if you're not already using DevBox, it's really easy to get started. And so this is the point in the session where you can take out your cameras and you can take a picture. You can either take one of me or of the session code up here. And so when you take that photograph, your app will probably remember the QR code. So as you're going back and you're reliving all of the fun moments here at Ignite, you'll be able to go back and surf and remember how to get started on DevBox. But also specifically just for all of you folks here in the room, we also introduced for the first time a live lab session for DevBox. And so on either Wednesday or on Friday, you can sit down and actually take a DevBox for a spin and take a test drive, setting up a full DevBox deployment end to end. Now, I did hear earlier that there's only about 10% capacity left. We're getting really good signups and registrations. So if that is of interest, please do sign up for that lab right away. There are many other sessions that we have here at Ignite. Principles on platform engineering. We have a session if you're interested in this principle of self-serve with guardrails. There is also a service, Azure Deployment Environments, that delivers the same fundamental promise, but for your app infrastructure to your teams. We have a demo for that up in the hall. I think it's THR 612, and many other sessions for many of our teams. If you want to ask us questions, the team, the developers, the folks that are building the product, we'll be over in the expert meetup hall upstairs. Please come find us. We'd love to see you and talk to you and answer all of your questions. And just as a teaser, everybody who uses DevBox needs to have DevBox socks to go with their DevBox. And so they look great. I've been wearing them on stage all day. Please come on by, and we have plenty of these to share. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate all the feedback that you brought to make DevBox a great product. Have a great show.